Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're all about the positivity here on the show. And with me right now, I've got a very special guest. He is a former WWE Smackdown general manager, former ECW general manager. He's a WWE Hall of Famer, class of 2017, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this man happens to be my favorite general manager of all time. Otherwise, he'd put me in a tag team match or have me go one-on-one with The Undertaker. I'm pleased to welcome the one, the only, Teddy Long. Teddy, welcome to Wrestling with Heart.
Hey, man, thank you so much. What a pleasure it is for me to be here with you. Like you say, I've met you on several occasions at different Comic-Cons and signings, and we just really not got a chance to really talk. But I'm glad you was able to get in touch with me, and I heard about your podcast, and I heard about the good things that you're doing. And so I just, want to thank you for having me on, and I'm ready to go.
All righty. So I did a little bit of research on you. You're from Birmingham, Alabama, and wrestling was such a huge deal in the South. I mean, you had your Len Rossies, your Jackie Fargos, your Bearcat Browns, Tojo Yamamotos. Was wrestling something you watched growing up as a kid in Alabama?
No. That's not even how I got into wrestling. My home's in Birmingham, Alabama. What happened with me when I was a teenager, I was a disc jockey on a radio station. Okay, so I worked at several radio stations in Birmingham, Alabama. And what happened by me being in radio at that particular time, I had a chance to meet the one and only James Brown. So by me meeting James Brown, I had a chance to get to know him really well. And so they transferred me from a radio station, WENN in Birmingham, to a radio station in Jackson, Mississippi, was named WOKJ. So I went down there and I worked in Jackson, Mississippi on the radio. And one day I come in and we saw that James Brown was coming to town. So when James got to Jackson, Mississippi, I happened to go out to the airport and meet him. So he remembered me from Birmingham, from working with him there. And I happened to be a good friend of his son, his late son that passed. And so we kind of hung out together because we both were teenagers. So anyway, when I run into James in Jackson, Mississippi, I talked to him a little bit there. And he told me that he was buying a line of radio stations. I think he owned about 3 or 4 radio stations. And he had one in Savannah. And he wanted me Augusta. That's where he had one at. And he wanted me to come to work for him in Augusta. But I didn't want to leave WOKJ, the station that I was working for. But anyway, it didn't cause no bad blood between us. So anyway, James left. And so once I left Jackson, Mississippi, I went back to Birmingham, went to my hometown. So when I got back to Birmingham, I looked up one day and James Brown had a TV show on WTBS called Future Shock. It was like the Soul Train, like a dance show. Mm-hmm. So I just went down to the TV station, saw James, and he was glad to see me. So we talked, and he said, "Well, I want you to be the music director here, select the music for the people to dance by." And James knew I could do that by my radio background. So I went to work at TBS Studios where James Brown was taping the show. It was called Future Shock. By me being down at TBS, that's where they were taping Georgia Championship Wrestling. They were taping the wrestling show there. So by me working for James Brown, then on Saturdays, I would go back down to TBS just to watch the wrestling. I just went down because I could see it live and I didn't have to pay to get in, and cheap. So so me and my son used to go down and watch the TV tapings. So one day we were down there and I run into Abdullah the Butcher. He just walked up to me and he just, pulled me off and we started talking. Well, Abdullah had just come to town. He didn't know his way around, didn't know anybody. So he asked me about, would I show him around, because he liked to party at that time. Abdullah loved to go to the clubs. So what I would do on Saturday mornings, Abdullah Butcher would come and pick me up from my house, and he would get with me, and I would stay with him the rest of that day. I would take him to the TV station, and then after that, we would go. I'd take him to the clubs. But anyway, when I started going down to the TV station with him, then I could get in the back where the boys were, because by me being with Abdullah. Because back then it was really kayfabe, brother. They didn't let nobody back there unless they knew you. So anyway, I was in the back, started hanging around, and I could see people kind of staring at me, looking at me. So I made myself busy. I would see stuff. I'd pick up trash. I would empty garbage cans. I would see if any of the guys needed food, because they had a cafeteria in the TBS studios downstairs. And I would go down and get food, bring it back. And so I started getting food for Dusty Rhodes. God rest his soul. Dusty gave me my first job. Okay. But anyway, I started getting food, for the guy, for Dusty, Jim Crockett. I think JJ was in there, and a lot of the guys that were part of the production meeting. So I would go down to the cafeteria and get this food and bring it back up to them. So one day I brought some food up, and I set it down, and I got ready to leave, and Dusty looks at me. He told me, he says, "No, you stand right over there. Stand right there, baby. Stand right there." So I don't know why I'm standing there. So, I'm really scared to death, because now they're having this big production meeting. They're going over all this stuff. I don't even know what I'm listening to. But as I grew older and as I stayed in the business, all that stuff that I heard in that production meeting started coming back to me. Then it started making sense. Then I started understanding what the business is all about. But anyway, the way I got into the business is, like I said, I started going to the TV station. So after I got known behind the scenes, they needed somebody to put up the ring and take the ring down. Well, by me being there, then I was the guy to do that. So I got the job putting up the ring, taking the ring down. So I took the ring to Cobb Civic Center one night in Marietta, Georgia. They didn't have by bell time, the referee, they didn't have no referee. The referee didn't show up. So the promoter came to me, Louise Manning, and she's still living today. And she said, "Teddy Long, you're going to have to referee tonight. There's no we don't have a referee." And I said to her, I said, "I can't do that. I don't know anything about it." She said, "Well, don't worry." She said, "The guys will take care of you. You just get in there." And so they sent out and got me a shirt. So the first match I had was Ron Bass and Black Bart. And they was in a Texas death match. Scared me to death because they're bleeding all over the place. So one time I seen Ron Bass, he had this gimmick in his hand, and he hit Black Bart with it, and Bart started bleeding, and it scared me. I jumped out of the ring and left him. Now the guy that's ringing the bell, he's yelling and screaming at me, "Get back in the ring, get back in the ring, what are you doing?" I'm ready to leave. I'm leaving because I see blood everywhere. So I think this is a real fight. So by this time I just panic, and so I end up getting back into the ring. And I never will forget, I could hear Ron Bass. He looked over at Black Bart and he said to him, "Can you believe what that fucking referee just did?" And but I'm saying to myself, I'm done. I know I am done here. So I finally finished that up, and the way that the heat got off of me is at the end of that Texas death match, there was a guy that was ringing the bell, and he rang the bell too quick, which screwed the whole finish up. So they got so mad at him till they forgot about me. So That's how I started refereeing.
Well, Teddy, you were able to get your foot in the door. When an opportunity presented itself, you took that opportunity and ran with it. And over time,
I didn't even know it was an opportunity.
But you were able to make the most of it, though. You were able to take that and run with it.
I learned from on the job. It's called on the job training. Nobody taught me. There were some guys that came to me and helped me and talked to me, but back then, a lot of guys didn't even want to see you around. So I didn't have nobody really help me.
Like a sink or swim kind of thing.
I learned on my own everything. I watched and I learned, and I kept my mouth shut and kept my ears open, and that's how I survived.
Yeah, hard work when you're taking the ring up and putting it down, I mean, that's a lot of hard work right there. And the fact
Well,
that you're able to move up the ladder as quick as you did, I mean, that's got to feel rewarding for you.
well, that's God's work. You know what I mean? That's who I owe all that to is the Almighty, because it wasn't me. I had no idea I'd even be involved in professional wrestling, because when I was coming up as a kid here, I lost both my mother and my father at a very young age. So I was out in the street. So I didn't, I didn't know anything about doing the right thing. I was out in the street breaking laws, hustling, doing everything I could to get money. So God has really blessed me.
Wow. I mean, that's horrible. I mean, losing your parents at such an early age. I mean,
Well,
it's
it is what
terrible.
it is, man. You can't dwell on stuff. You know what I mean? That's God's call. And not only that, my parents were alcoholics, so they tribute to their own death too. You know what I mean? Because they just kept
Yeah.
drinking. My mother died with tuberculosis, and my father, he just drank himself to death.
Wow. Wow. But you were able to turn your life around and able to, work at, at the radio station. I mean, James Brown was like, he was like the ultimate entertainer. I mean, he could sing, he could dance, he could, he could put on a show like no other. I mean, that's unbelievable, Teddy, that you got to work with him. And from
Yeah.
there, you worked at the TBS studios, getting involved with Georgia Championship Wrestling, eventually became WCW. I mean, now you said you started refereeing when somebody called out or couldn't do it, but tell me about how you felt about becoming a referee and over time the progression of being able to call matches and eventually segueing into managing.
Well, my thing was this, I was still green, so I really didn't know a whole lot. I was just, happy to have the job. And so when I started refereeing, I had a chance to ride with Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, God rest his soul, and Kevin Sullivan. Well, these two guys here, if you know anything about them, they were geniuses. They knew this business like the back of their hand. Well, I'm lucky enough to be in the car with these two guys, and they're talking about wrestling there, because at that particular time, Kevin and Eddie was doing some of the booking. So I'm like they're right in the heart of it, listening to everything that's going on, how they're putting the show together, how they're doing this, how they're doing that. And I don't say a word. I'm just remembering everything that I hear. So as time went on, Kevin we always had a deal where we would go to Disney and we would do the TV tapings in Disneyland down in Tampa,
Disney World.
Orlando.
Disney.
So every night I would always go to Kevin's room when he got ready to book NWO or whatever, and I would sit there in the room and go over all the bookings and go with him. I would just watch him and stuff that he done, and nobody never knew that. Nobody never knew that I was in that room going with all that information. But we kept it, Kevin understood, and he made me understand what it is. We keep it on the down low, you know what I mean? Kevin liked me for some reason, and I appreciate that, because he certainly did a lot for me. And also Eddie Gilbert, he liked me for some reason too, and he helped me a whole lot. So that's how I got involved. So so riding with those two guys, one night we was going down the road, so we get a 6-pack. We get a 12-pack. That was the thing back in the day. Once you leave one of the events, you get a 12-pack and hit the road and hit to the next town. So I'd get a couple of beers in, and I'd turn the radio up and down and start DJing for them. They didn't know that I had been a DJ, so I started doing that, and so they looking at me like, wow, man. But I'm thinking they're just impressed with my DJing, but they saw that I could talk. So it was Kevin Sullivan's idea and also Eddie Gilbert to make me a manager, because once they saw I could talk. Well, there were certain people that didn't want me to be a manager. They didn't want no part of it, but we happened to overcome them. So that way is how I started managing. It was because of Kevin Sullivan and Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert.
And you made the transition too, because you were refereeing a match. I think I heard you had refereed a match, and somehow you turned heel on.
I had a match with Ron Simmons and the Junkyard Dog, and God rest his soul. And I turned heel right there, and I did the fast count on JYD.
Wow.
And then after that, that was part of it. They fired me from that, And the next time you saw me, well, I did two things. I went in the New Orleans Superdome and I did the fast count on the Road Warriors, on the signers. Okay, so we screwed them. That was the first one. Then I went to TV and I did the fast count with Ron Simmons and JYD. So then Jim Hurd come out. He said they wasn't putting up with that no more. They fired me. So I stayed away about a week or two. And the next time you saw me, I come back in. I came out scouting, looking at different guys, and that's how I started managing.
I mean, you were cutting some really intense promos back then. I mean, you were managing back then, I believe they were, was it the Ebony Express?
Well, they were with Nancy Sullivan, God rest her soul, Nancy Benoit. She had them first, and they were the Ebony. No, let's see. They were something else then. They called them Ebony Express. I believe that's what they were.
Yes.
I'm thinking about somebody else now. They were then, and then once I got them, then we changed the name to Doom.
Yeah, I mean, Butch Reed and Ron Simmons were a really good tag team.
Well,
hard hitting.
That was a great team, man. They really uplifted my career, and they were great in the ring. So we had a great time.
What were they like to be around outside of wrestling on the road?
Well, Ron and Butch were always great, man. Butch was just, God rest his soul. He was so funny. He took things so serious, and we would rip him. Sometimes he'd get so mad. Oh, God, man. I mean, me and Ron and Butch used to ride together. So, back then, they didn't have no cell phone. So Butch and his wife would always be arguing all the time. He was always fighting. So Butch had to stop every 5 minutes to a payphone so he could call his wife, and they cuss and fuss, and then he'd jump back in the car and he'd get in. We'd ride on down the road about another mile. We'd have to take him to another phone booth so he could call back home. So so it was just fun with Butch and Ron both. I certainly learned a lot from Butch. He'd been in the business a long time. I learned a lot from Ron. So working with those two guys was certainly a big help to me.
You had managed Mean Marcellus before he became The Undertaker in the late 80s. How did that come about?
Well, I remember the way I got him is I met him through he came in one night when I had the team of Spivey and Sid Vicious, the Skyscrapers. And I think Sid got hurt or something and he went home or something. And so Taker came in and replaced Sid one night and, as part of the Skyscrapers. And then I started managing them single and I remember now when I guess they had other plans for me, Paul Heyman came in and I sold his contract to Paul Heyman, but I managed Taker, Mean Marcellus way before The Undertaker was ever thought of.
And what was he like to be around back in those days?
He was great. He's still the same guy. There are a lot of guys that you can go walk up to today, and like myself, I never changed. I never let this business went to my head. I never mistreated anybody. I never talked down to people. I never mistreated any fans or anybody, because I don't forget where I come from. And that's the way Taker was. He never forgot where he came from. He would come to TV, and as big a star as he was, he would walk down to that ring, and he didn't have to do none of this. He would walk down to that ring. He would stop. He would look around, and see who needed help or who was in the ring, what were they doing. And he'd take his time and go get in the ring, and he'd help them on his own. Nobody asked him. So that's how, great he was. Any help that he could give to anybody, he was there for you.
You also got to manage several other people, too. Mark Merrow, when he was Johnny B. Bad, for example. How was it like working with him?
Well, it was good because he was green. I was just, both of us green. He was just a little bit greener. A lot of people don't know, I was the one that gave him the name Johnny B. Bad, and the way that came about is when we first started with him, Dusty called us in, and Dusty put me with him, and Dusty wanted to call him Tutti Frutti. And the reason why, because he looked so much like Little Richard. And so that's why Dusty thought about Tutti Frutti. Well, Merrill come out to me, and he stops me, right? I'll never forget, we was in Columbus, Georgia, and he runs up to me, he says, hey, Teddy. I said, yeah. He said, hey, I just talked to Dusty. He said, they want to call me Tutti Frutti. Well, I don't want to be Tutti. I said, Mark, hey, man, you got to understand, if that's what they want to call you, then that's what you're going to have to be. I don't know what to say. And he said, well, do you think we could come up with some? I said, well, I don't know. I said, I ain't really got no stroke here. But I said, I tell you what, how about this right here? And I said, and I didn't tell him. I said, come on, let's go. Let's see if we can get a minute with Dusty. So we walked on down and found Dusty. We went in his office. And so I asked him, sir, do you mind if I run something by you? And Dusty was always cool with me. And he said, yeah, baby. I said, instead of Tutti Frutti, how about this? I said, how about we say all the fly guys will get mad and all the fly girls will get glad. Get ready for Johnny B. Bad. And Dusty looked at me. That's good, baby. That is good, baby. That's good. And so that's how Johnny B. Bad came. It was just a great time for me. I was doing so much stuff and didn't even really know what I was doing. So I had to learn, as I go each and every day. So my time in WCW was really great. I had a chance to learn. I had to go through a lot of other things too. But anyway, I was able to survive some of that and to make it in this business thanks to people like Harley Race, God rest his soul, man, that really sit down and talk to me one time. And he didn't have to do that. So when people come to me and talk to me and I know they don't have to do it, then I can trust them and believe that they're sincere. And I had that to come from Harley Race, Terry Funk, God rest his soul, another guy that took time with me and told me how to protect myself and watch certain people. So, I just, like I said, it was just in God's hand. He blessed me to make it where I am today and to make it through WCW and then from there straight on into WWE.
Now, when you're managing and when you're looking at certain performers, certain talents in the back, what can you tell me about some of the influences that you had as a manager? Because I'm sure you had to watch a lot of tape and study up on different characters. Can you tell me about anything that you were able to learn or study?
I didn't watch no tapes and I didn't study up on nobody. Everything that I walked out on that TV came straight from me. Me. I created everything that I'd done. I was no character. I was me. The same way you see me on the street, that's the same way I am on TV. I'll walk right up to you on the street. What it is, player? You know what I mean? I'm just the same guy.
Same guy.
Right. I wasn't a character. I was me. So that's what really made it easy for me to succeed because I was being me. It wasn't hard at all, brother. I could walk out on that stage and God bless me with another thing, a good memory. So when they gave me something, Vince, this was something that Vince really liked for me because Vince always wanted to be real. He wanted to make it real as possible. Mm-hmm. So when I went to rehearsals, I was the only guy in that ring in rehearsal with no script in his hand.
Wow. That's unbelievable too.
That's the truth. And Tony Atlas will witness this story for you. One time, it was bad weather and my plane got screwed up or something, but I was trying to get into New Jersey or somewhere it was. But anyway, I couldn't get there. And Tony Atlas was at the meeting there and he told me when I finally did arrive, it was too late because I just couldn't make it. He said Vince held up everything. He wouldn't do nothing. He said he's going to wait until I got there. And that Tony Allison witnessed that to you. And then another thing I remember in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, when I was doing the stuff with Undertaker where he kidnapped me. Mm-hmm. I never will forget. The writers come to me and they told me that they were ready. So I said, well, we was waiting on Vince because I had a promo with him. And so they come back and they went to Vince and then they come back to me and they told me, they said, well, Vince wanted to know, he ain't coming until you're ready. I said, well, y'all know I'm ready. Just tell him. But, and that's a true story.
Yeah. I mean, they waited on you to come in and do your thing. And I mean, that's just a testament to how well you've been able to work hard and do what you need to do. I mean, a true professional.
That's another reason why I lasted 9 years running SmackDown because I learned what Vince McMahon liked. I learned what made him happy. And that's what you got to learn. It ain't so much about the business. You got to learn how to keep him happy. Because he was strictly business. He didn't play. And I could understand that. I didn't know at first, but I understand this man's got $1 billion operation. And one word can screw everything up.
Yep.
And I had to learn that, and I learned that. And I said, when I went to WWF, Vince McMahon really made a man out of me because he made me understand the wrestling business. This is about drawing money. We ain't playing here. We ain't joking around. And I didn't understand the business side of it until I went to work for Vince.
Now, when you went to WWE, they put you back as a referee. Were there plans at all at that time to make you a manager? That was just the job that they had at the time.
I'll tell you how it all happened. When I went in as a referee, okay, I remember one night Vince McMahon saw me and he spoke to me, and he said, "Hey, how you doing? Thanks, welcome aboard. Hadn't had a chance to speak to you," and that was it. So I didn't think no more about it. So one day, and I have to speak on this, and I really hate it, but I like to quit talking about it. But John Laurinaitis was one of the worst people you could ever work for. I don't know what this man had, what the hatred was for me or why he didn't like me. Well, I really do know. It wasn't nothing I done. It was just the color of my skin. But anyway, Laurinaitis was in charge at that time. Well, what happened is when I started refereeing, somebody didn't kick out or something. Well, I screwed up one match. I never forget it was Nick Foley and X-Pac. And some kind of way it got screwed up and I counted one of them out or something, and I screwed that finish up. Well, then they all got mad at me, when that happened. So I'm like, oh God, here we go. So next thing I know, we went to Hawaii, and I never forget it. It was Test and Christian. Test, God rest his soul, and I refereed their match, and I counted Christian out 1, 2, 3. Well, it wasn't my fault. Christian didn't kick. Test didn't kick out. It wasn't my fault. But finally, Test, and I hate to say things about people when they're past because they can't come back and say they said it or say they didn't say it. So, you have to just say, well, he's just saying that because the guy's dead. But Test told me this. He said, I had no idea, man, that they was going to fire you. They told me to lay down. He told me Laurinaitis told him to lay it, not kick out. So I got fired there. John Laurinaitis got rid of me. So I came home and I stayed at home. And so one day they called me out of the blue and they wanted me to come to Providence, Rhode Island. Well, I didn't have any money. I had $2 in my pocket. So they got me a plane ticket and everything. So then when I got to Providence, Rhode Island, that's when I went, they come and picked me up. I flew into Boston. They picked me up in Boston, drove me to Providence. Well, that's when I found out that I was managing. And the way I got back in is Earl Hebner, Sergeant Slaughter, and Michael Hayes was in the meeting, in a production meeting. Now, I went in the meeting. This is what I know, and Slaughter told me this, so I know it's the truth. They were in a production meeting, and they were talking about a manager. Well, Laurinaitis, they told me he brought up Ernest the Cat Miller's name. He never brought my name up at all. And Slaughter and Earl Hebner and Michael Hayes brought my name up to Vince. They said, Vince, you got a guy right here, right now that can talk his ass off, Teddy Long. So Vince said, well, goddamn it, bring him in, get him up here. Well, Laurinaitis called me, and it was like the death call. He hated to tell me that. Yeah, we got to bring you back, and, that kind of shit. Anyway, I came back, and that night I walked out the first time on Vince's TV. I didn't even have a suit. I had to go to some store or something, and I bought a pair of slacks, and I bought a suede jacket, and that's what I wore out with D'Lo Brown the first night. And I cut this promo on Tommy Dreamer. And when I walked back into that gorilla position, Vince McMahon was standing up, and he was looking at me, and he said to me, he said, I can't believe I've had you right here under my nose all this time. And I almost told him that somebody could have told you, but they didn't. But I didn't say nothing. I just said, thank you, sir. And then one other time he hit me, he says, you know what? They really wasted you down south. So Vince understood. So he knew what I had went through in WCW and down south. So what happened is Vince came up with this idea for the White Boy Challenge. And when I was doing it with Rodney Mack and Mr. Kennedy, you remember he was one of the White Boy Challenge. I'm doing a deal where the white man's keeping me down. Well, Vince knew I could pull that off because that really happened to me. That was real. You know what I mean? So, and something can happen because that really happened to me in WCW, okay? So Vince understood it's business. If something happened to you, you're the best person in the world to pull it off. You don't need no actor. So that's why I was so good with the White Boy Challenge and everything because, I knew. So that's kind of how things went.
So he came up with the White Boy Challenge.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. All right. You managed Roddy Mack. You managed Jazz. You managed Mark Henry, all within a span of a year, and then you get drafted to SmackDown. You managed Mark Jindrak for a brief time. What was he like to work with, by the way? Because he's someone you don't really hear much about these days.
Oh, Mark was a great guy, man. Well, it's been a while since I saw him, but he went to Mexico and he became a real big star there.
Mm-hmm.
And we were somewhere in Mexico, Guadalajara or somewhere, I think we went. Anyway, but I had a chance to see Mark there. But Mark Jindrak was a real nice guy.
The reflection of perfection. I love that gimmick. That was awesome. Yeah. That was really awesome. And then finally, the big break comes. What happened that night in Cincinnati, Ohio? I remember this very well because I remember watching you being named the general manager of Smackdown. Tell me what went through your mind on that day.
I didn't even know anything about it. They didn't even tell me anything about it because Vince didn't want nobody to know, because at that particular time, when you would put out stuff, first and people that were in the office, I mean, people that work for the company would go straight to social media and put it out there, even before it happened. So Vince didn't tell me, the writers didn't tell me. It was about 5 minutes before we went live. One of the writers came to me and told me, "Hey, you and Vince are going to open up the show." I said, what are you talking about? And he said, "Well, I know they didn't tell you." He said, "Because we didn't want to tell you." He said, "But Vince is going to make you general manager of SmackDown tonight."
Wow.
And that's how I found it out.
Just happened like that.
Yes.
And look at the career that you have had and that legacy that you had with that run. I mean, it all makes sense now. Tag team matches, one-on-one with The Undertaker.
And I came up with those things myself. And I'll tell you how the one-on-one with The Undertaker came. Is one night we were in Madison Square Garden. And Stephanie went out and introduced somebody. And when she come back, I was standing there. Vince stopped her. And Vince was telling her, "Stephanie, I want you to be a little bit more up with the introduction or something. Like, I want you to put a lot of emphasis on it. John William, like that." So I'm just standing there, and I didn't say one word, but I picked right up on it. I knew what he wanted. So when I started going out, then talking about The Undertaker, then I always remembered Vince. One-on-one with The Undertaker, because that's what he wanted. And I remembered that. And the same thing with the tag team matches. Nobody told me that. I came up with that myself. Make tag team matches mean something.
I mean, it's got to feel good, Teddy, when you go online and you type in Teddy Long tag team match or Teddy Long Undertaker. The amount of memes that you find online, it's hilarious, but it's also got to make you feel good because of the contributions that you made to professional wrestling.
Well, what really makes me feel good is when I'm on these different signings. What really makes me feel good is when people come up to me and they tell me, "You are the best general manager of all time. You made my childhood, man. Mm-hmm. I don't care what they're doing now. It ain't you. It ain't you." Aww. And you can see that, when they call me back, when I have to go back and do something, when I walk out, and I'm not bragging about it, but they told me, they said, I get the biggest pop of the night. So I said something, one night I walked out, Hunter, he's the guy in charge. And so I said to Road Dogg, he said, "Yeah." He said, "Teddy, you got a big pop out there." I said, "Well, tell Hunter." And he looks at me and he says, "He heard it." You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Well, you earned those pops.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Tell Hunter, then, if I'm getting a pop, then so there's nothing you can do with me. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, Like I said, man, I'm just happy to made it where I am today. I'm enjoying the rest of my life now. I had a great run. I've been blessed. So man, I don't care whether I go back or not. I just enjoy doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that people still remember you, it has to feel really, really good and make you feel good about yourself.
Brother, I was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and my co-host on my podcast, Road Trip After Hours, Mac Davis, you can witness it. He was standing there with me. I swear to you, man. It's a woman walked up to me, and she just grabbed me and started crying. She was telling me how I was missed on the TV and how they, just wished I was back. And then she was crying real tears. Aww. I mean, it brought me to tears. So that tells me right there, here's people that's come right up to me out of the blue. They don't know me. and to come to me with that and tell me that, you know what I mean? Then that tells me, okay, then I guess whatever I was doing was right. So what happened?
It's that emotional connection. That's part of professional wrestling, is that connection that you have with the fans, and the fact that people still remember you is wonderful. It's a very good feeling to have.
Well, I try to stay relevant, man. I stay, out here and doing what I do, and that's the name of the game. Stay relevant.
Yeah, it's what you have to do. Well, let's switch gears now and talk about some of the stuff you've done outside of wrestling. I know you've done a lot of charity work and done a lot of things, partnered up with different companies, organizations. I know you've got something you wanted to talk about with me. Tell me about some of the stuff you've done as far as charity work is concerned.
Well, I didn't get a chance to do a lot when I went to WWE because of the work schedule, you know what I mean? But when I was in WCW, I had a chance to do a lot. They gave me Teddy Long Day, September 15th, which is my birthday. They made that Teddy Long Day. If I knew we was going to talk about it, I would have got the plaque. I have it here, so I could show that to you.
Yeah.
They gave me that, and the mayor, which was Bill Campbell at the time. My thing basically was when in WCW, I went out and I was just concerned more about the kids in the community, because I came up pretty rough, man, in the communities, and I knew exactly how it was. So for me to try to go back and talk to the kids and try to keep them straight, try to keep them off drugs and try to keep them in school, because I understand the importance of an education. That you got to have that, you know what I mean? And like I said, man, with the drugs, I've been there, done that, A to Z. So I'm still alive, and I thank God for that, because he blessed me to come through all of that. So I like to share my story with other people. If I can do it, you can do it. It's just that simple.
Yeah, I mean it's tough out there in the world, especially with what's things that are going on now, and it's just like you got to find a way to handle situations the best way possible so that you stay on track. So that's amazing that you're able to do that.
Yes.
And motivation too, that's another thing. So many people now need motivation to keep going in life, because you just never know.
And the other thing too, man, you can't forget where you come from. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'll stop right now and talk to anybody. I remember when I was a heel manager, I would stop and talk to people, and Butch Reed would get so mad at me. Oh my God, because we were heels, and we were taught back in the day, the heels are heels. You mean, you don't talk to people. Well, I just couldn't walk by somebody and they asked me for my autograph, and to me, it was just harsh to walk by them and not say nothing and not sign. So I would always do it, and Butch would get mad at me because he said, like, we're not supposed to do that. We're bad guys. So I just could never get with that. I would always stop and talk, and I would always sign something for people.
You were talking about WrestleCade earlier in Winston-Salem. I was actually next to you, next door to you at the booth over. And to see the amount of people coming up to you, I mean, talking to you, sharing their stories and memories with you, I mean, that's got to feel good.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, like I said, it's always good, to get compliments. And like I said, I don't mind if it's something I'm doing that you don't like. Tell me about it. Maybe we can talk about it. We ain't got to get mad at each other. If you didn't like it, then tell me why you didn't like it. Then maybe I can explain to you why I done it. Then maybe you understand why you didn't like it. It's supposed to be like that.
Yeah. Now, do you keep up with the product today, right?
I watch it sometime. I don't watch it all the time because I do a lot of other things.
Yeah, and I know that you have two podcasts, both of them with Mac Davis, who I've also had the pleasure of interviewing on the show. Tell me about your podcast, Teddy.
Well, we do a podcast with me and Mac Davis, and I'll tell you how that started. Mac Davis is a wonderful guy. I mean,
he's awesome.
Outstanding, man. And Mac used to, he was an independent wrestler too. He worked on the independent scene. He never did, make it to the big time. And I can see why, because a lot of the guys didn't try to help Mac, and they could have helped him, and I think Mac was just, one other thing about it, he's too nice. But anyway, I would see Mac, and, I'd always talk to him, and I'd let him interview me, and I'd talk to him, and I'd be about the only person that would talk to him. Nobody else, they'd look at him, wouldn't speak to him or talk to him. So one night I saw him somewhere, and me and him was talking. So I asked him, I said, what is it that you do? And he explained to me about the podcast, and he was trying to get started and everything. I said, I tell you what, I said, these guys, I said, I'll help you with them. I said, me and you, how about I help you? And let's try to get this started. And so that's how I got with Mac. So I was able to, get people like the Godfather and different other guys, to come on our podcast because I worked with him. But Mac is one of the greatest guys you could ever meet, man. So I think a lot of guys that didn't help him, they missed the boat. I'm so happy to be working with him. I don't know what to do. And then we also do another podcast with Sports Keita. It's me, Mac Davis, and Bill Apter.
See, Teddy, I mean, you're paying it forward to people that you never know what people are going through in life. And the fact that, Mac is, trying to start up a podcast, you're helping him out. And, I remember hearing an interview with you a few years ago about you're trying to help young talent in the professional wrestling business with their promos and mic skills. I mean, tell me about any instances or encounters that you can recall about people coming up in the business that you were able to help someone struggling if they were trying to, with their moves or their promo segments.
Well, I used to, a lot of the talent back then when I was, full time then, we didn't get much of the young talent that didn't know. A lot of guys came from NXT, they was already pretty much, ready to go, but it's always, room to learn. So there would be a lot of guys that would come up that I would get a chance to talk to. Sometime I would pull them off to the side, or either they would come to me and they would say, Teddy Long, watch my match. You mind? And I would do that, and I would tell them know what they did wrong. But a lot of people thought, by me not being a wrestler, what does he know? I knew a lot more than they ever would know. You know what I mean? Because I learned and I kept it all in my head. I kept it all right there. And I knew exactly what this is all about. But like I said, you got a lot of young people, they don't want to listen. They don't want to hear it. So I don't bother them.
Yeah, I mean, you got to, in professional wrestling, you really got to want it. You got to have that desire and hunger to learn. And you've just got a wealth of knowledge, a sharp mind for the business. And we need people out there like you, Teddy, to be able to help talent that want to move forward.
I want to help them, man. I ain't got no problem with it. Like when I do a lot of independent shows, you know what I mean? A lot of guys ask me to watch their matches. I watch them. And when they come back, if they did something wrong, I tell them. I don't do like they used to do back in the day. Back in the day, you'd come back, you had a bad match, and you'd have somebody standing there, good match, good out there, baby, good job. And I would stand there, and I'm like, golly, why would you say that? And you knew they had a bad match, but they didn't want to tell you because their other plan was they was going to be getting rid of you. So that was the other plan. So like I said, man, I enjoy helping them. And if I can help somebody, I don't mind it. So yeah, I got no problem with it whatsoever.
One guy that I feel like you helped really develop into what he is now, and he's doing amazing in WWE, is Drew McIntyre. You worked with him early on in his career. What was it like working with Drew?
Well, I don't think I really helped Drew. I think Drew probably helped me. But me and him got along, man. I love working with him. We did the thing when he was Vince's the chosen one.
To see what he's doing now, I mean, he's come a long way from where he started in WWE. So I definitely think that storyline with you definitely helped play a key role to his trajectory.
Well, like I said, Drew and I, we got along. He was a great guy, nice guy to work with, man. Great attitude, man. So I never had any problem with Drew at all.
Another fun memory I've got of you from your days on SmackDown is Buckle Up Teddy. You talked about it earlier. How did that all come about?
Well, we were doing this deal with Undertaker, and also Vince was part of the story too. He gave me his picture, and he wanted me to take down one of the pictures, and he wanted me to hang his picture in my office. So at the time, that the picture was tore all up and everything, so he come in and wanted to see the picture, and I couldn't. I'm just cutting promos with him, telling him he can't see it. I don't have it ready. I'm putting it in a special frame and all that. So the other thing about the part with Undertaker and the kidnapping part, Vince came up with that. That was all Vince's idea. So that was just great for me. We did the limo thing. Taker said, buckle up, and I'm like, I'm thinking it's the guys that are taking me away. And I look up and it's Taker. So, I know how to sell that. So I pulled that. That was great. Vince was happy with all that. Taker even came and told me, I think the night that me and Vince was arguing over the picture, and I couldn't. And finally, he saw the picture and he saw it all messed up, and I'm trying to explain it. And I can't remember what he said to me. He said, "Do you like working something here or something?" He said, but I looked at him and I said, "I work for you, sir." And he didn't say nothing back to me. He just we walked on out. Well, later on that night, I saw Taker, and Taker said, "Come here." He said, "You stumped him." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I have never seen anybody to stomp him and leave him where he didn't have any words." And he walked, he didn't say nothing. And then the way it come back to me is that night when Vince was leaving, I swear it's a true story. He walked right by me, looked at me, he said, "You're too much." And he kept walking.
Wow. That is so amazing. And the way that you were able to pull that off, that's like one of the classic segments on SmackDown.
Oh, brother, I loved it. I was enjoying. Only thing I thought about was the casket. You know, I'm like, oh no, I got the TV. I didn't know it. I saw the casket, but I didn't know, I was going to be in it until later on that day. And so, nobody wants to be in a coffin. But then I thought about this. Vince would have got in it. So what am I going to say?
Wow.
Just that simple.
All right, so I got a question for you that hasn't been asked before on any other podcast, at least with you, and let's see if we can get you to answer this. If we could get a Mount Rushmore of people that you were able to work with, or just people that were there during your time on SmackDown, who would you put on it? And I got a feeling we got to put one of them on there, and that being Undertaker. We'll make it easy for you.
Well, I take Stone Cold Steve Austin. I had a chance to work with him when he chased me with the ATV.
Mm-hmm.
God, back then there were just so many guys, to work with there, that would, let's see, you had The Rock. I had a chance to cut promos and do some stuff with him. So we had Austin, JBL. Ron Simmer, there with APA and all them. I had a chance to, work with them. Oh man, God, it's and I don't want to leave anybody out because everybody back then was just such great superstars, and to walk out with anybody, you know what I mean. You were walking out with somebody, so I think that Mount Rushmore is just
too much, too many people.
I just say everybody that I worked with back in the Attitude Era, brother, those are the Mount Rushmores for me.
Yeah, I mean, that was a crazy time. I mean, just like everybody had something to do. I was talking with Devon about this, why we probably wouldn't see the Attitude Era return. Devon, yep.
Mount Rushmore. I had a chance to work with him, and me and him, we get along so great as of today. I just saw him in Jacksonville at the fest down there a couple of weeks ago.
Great guy. But yeah, I mean, another one of my favorite memories of you was the whole car incident with Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle.
When he tore my car.
Yeah, like how did that whole thing come about? Because you did a phenomenal job with the acting.
Well, I didn't know that until I got the TV, and they said I got this car, and they told me that Eddie was going to tear the car up that night. So, I didn't worry about it. Just tell me what you need. So when he got out there, we got ready for it, and he started beating up the car. I'm like, hey, this is my car. What are you know what I mean? Oh, God, So, and I think that's why I got along with Vince too, because I knew how to sell. I knew what he wanted. So what would you do in real life if somebody was busting up your car?
You played it to perfection. I mean, it was just so hilarious, like watching that back. You've been involved with so many great storylines. Do you have one favorite that sticks out?
The one favorite that sticks out is me and that kid, that coffin.
You and that coffin. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the price.
And the other thing a lot of people didn't know, that when, once the coffin down, the lids are down, you're dead. So who cares whether you get there and breathe or not? So I had to take my finger and I had to ease the lid up just enough where people couldn't see it, so I could get some air in there where I could breathe. So the whole time they were pushing me down, I had my finger right like that, right at that lid up where just enough so I could get air in there.
Wow. I mean, that's hard. It's not easy to just, slide down in there, you can hardly breathe, as you said, and it's just like,
Hey, Vince would have done it.
Yeah, that whole saying, Vince wouldn't do something that he wouldn't do himself. So I mean,
That's right.
you got to do what you got to do. And then of course I got to bring this up: the wedding with Crystal.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. That was Vince's idea too.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to add a little bit to it, not the storyline, but I also brought in Bruce, the guy that was the preacher, the comedian.
Mm-hmm.
I knew him, so Vince asked me about some people, and also the singing talent that came in, Jagged Edge.
Mm-hmm.
These guys, they're from Atlanta, so I had a chance to know them. So I helped out a little bit there, and they just told me what they wanted, and I just went out and knocked it out.
Yeah, I mean, that ending, Teddy, you just, again, did you ever think about wanting to work in Hollywood or do some kind of movie role? You just have it.
I thought about that, and I guarantee you, and I don't even know what I want to say this, but I think about it all the time, and I'm pretty sure that some people from Hollywood seen me, and I might have got a call, but I guarantee you, if I did, it had to go through talent relations, and John Laurinaitis and Mark Arana blocked it. If anybody called me, they made sure I never knew about it.
Wow, I mean, you've just been involved in so many great storylines. You just were a natural. Like, I could definitely see you in a movie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But yeah, Teddy, why do you feel passionate about helping with everything that you've done and giving back? What is it about giving back to the community that gives you the most joy?
Well, the most joy is, to talk to people and they tell me, how much they enjoyed watching the show. They enjoyed, like you're asking me about different little things I've done, how they enjoyed it and everything. And I'm just happy to be able to be that guy to put some joy in your life. I'm happy to be that guy that you want to run home to every Saturday night and turn that TV on when Smackdown come on because you're waiting to see what I'm going to do or who I'm going to make go one-on-one with The Undertaker. So I'm just happy to be able to please people and to make other people happy. And sometimes some of those people come up to me with those comments, they just don't know. They almost bring me to a tear. So I have to back off a little bit so that I don't cry. But, just that's my joy, just to see other people happy.
And I'll never forget not only meeting you at WrestleCade, I also got a picture with you at a show in Nashville. I forgot the name of it. It might have been Freedom Pro Wrestling, but you came out as the GM, made a match. I think MVP was on that card as well. Maybe Buff Bagwell.
That was in that garage place. I know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm,
they got
the
a new
fairgrounds
building there now. They don't have that old building no more.
Yeah, but great times.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm. Getting the chance to meet with you, and I believe your grandson was there too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Khalil.
and he's the one that you got the dance from.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the one that started the dance. And like I said, we bought him a walker and we put him in that walker. We're trying to teach him how to walk. And every time we put him in it, for some reason, he just wanted to bop up and down. So I just went to TV and started doing it. But I would go back home and me and him would watch the show. And I said, look, I'm doing your dance. So one night I got ready to walk out and Vince was screaming at me, do that dance. And I turned around, I'm like, what dance? And he starts doing it. Vince is doing it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then that's how the dance started. Yep.
And it's caught on. It's amazing to see, everything taken off, and people still remember it. So this has been great. Teddy, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on to Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me, to the listeners and viewers. Where can people find you on social media? Do you want to plug your podcast?
Well,
all your links?
Our podcast is Road Trip After Hours. Me and Mac Davis. We're on YouTube and all other channels. I'm on my Twitter is @TeddyPlayer, @TeddyPlayerLong. Facebook is TeddyPlayerLong, and so I'm not on Instagram and none of the other stuff.
All right. Well, Teddy, again, thank you so much, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, man. It's been a blast. certainly enjoyed talking to you. And like I said, whenever you need me, man, you just let me know, and I'll be happy to come on again.
All right, we'll do it. Thanks again.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.